Have you ever been crushed by someone who smiled while doing it? I did. I was 17. She was 15. It started like some teen movie, awkward boy meets glowing girl. But instead of a happy ending, I got 5 years of anxiety and a playlist of hard rock. Now I'm 22, still flinching at pretty smiles and trying to fix the mess she never knew she made. Let's call me Joe. I'm 22 now, but this story isn't about present-day me. It's about the dumbass high school version of me. The one with the tragic haircut, secondhand jeans, and a face that screamed background character. I was quiet, sometimes bullied, mostly ignored. Not a great combo. But then I met Julia. Or more accurately, I saw Julia, and my whole boring world decided to grow fangs, hormones, and a gym membership overnight. She was sunshine with perfect teeth, and I was a socially awkward troll with a math notebook full of accidental doodles. It started with something that felt like magic, even if it was probably just my first dose of dumb teenage hope. It started with a glance. One of those movie-style, hallway-crossing, soul-piercing looks. Except she wasn't actually looking at me. She was laughing with her friend, probably at some meme or a fart noise. But my 17-year-old brain decided this meant fate had spoken. And fate apparently had braces, clear skin, and a hair flip that could end empires. Her name was Julia. Sophomore. Always smiling. Always surrounded. She wasn't the hottest girl in school. That was probably reserved for the volleyball captain with half a personality. But Julia had this light. The kind that made you think she never cried, never felt pain, never missed a bus. Meanwhile, I was a walking hoodie with a haircut I gave myself in the mirror. So of course I fell. And because I'm not the type to just like someone in a normal, healthy way, I immediately decided she was the one. Capital T, capital O. And obviously, the one deserved the best version of me. Not the half-asleep guy who kept his hands in his pockets like they were hostages. So I got to work. Every day after school, I trained. Push-ups in my room, runs until I collapsed, those awkward beginner abs YouTube videos with stock music and shirtless guys named Brad. I watched motivational montages like they were gospel. I started eating eggs. Boiled eggs. Voluntarily. My mom thought I was either depressed or on steroids. But I wasn't trying to be hot. I was trying to be worthy. Meanwhile, at school, I kept watching her from a safe, stalker-adjacent distance. I wasn't creepy, not really. I just always happened to be nearby. If she liked the school's mural wall, guess who accidentally started sketching there? If she joined the drama club to support her friend, guess who suddenly discovered a deep, brooding interest in backstage lighting? It worked. Sort of. She noticed me. Or at least, stopped looking through me. We started chatting. Mostly online. Thank God. Because in person I was about as smooth as a buttered rock. Messenger became my lifeline. We'd talk about school, music, her weird obsession with jelly shoes. I played it cool, or what I thought was cool, which mostly involved sending vaguely deep quotes and pretending to have taste in indie films. One day she messaged me first. I remember staring at that message like it was a sacred text. Hey Joe. It had a smiley face. I almost passed out. She started calling me out for walks in the evenings. Her best friend would be there, always giggling and teasing like I was part of some secret dare, but I didn't care. I was with her. The girl. My girl. Not really my girl. But try telling that to 17-year-old me. At that point, I was sure this was it. We were building something. She laughed at my jokes, even when they sucked. She asked me questions about myself. She once adjusted my hoodie drawstring while we walked, and I nearly proposed on the spot. So, naturally, I decided to confess. Now, I didn't go full K-drama. There were no roses or fireworks. Just a simple message one night. After an especially long conversation where she told me I felt easy to talk to. I said, I think I love you. And then waited. And waited. 3 dots. Typing. Then she replied, maybe you don't really love me. Maybe you just like me. That was it. No dramatic rejection. No big meltdown. Just a gentle, floaty maybe, dipped in enough ambiguity to keep me hooked like a clownfish. And I bought it. I told myself, she didn't say no. She's just not ready. We're close. She calls me out at night. She talks to me every day. This is just a stepping stone. It wasn't heartbreak. It was a strategy. So I doubled down. I sent her long messages explaining the difference between love and like, as if I were the philosopher of teenage hormones. She read them. Didn't always reply, but she read them. I told myself that meant something. When she said she wasn't ready for a relationship, I swallowed it. Like an idiot. Like a hopeful, lovesick, emotionally constipated idiot. Because love, in my mind, meant sit-ups and messenger chats and waiting. If I just waited long enough, trained hard enough, sent the right message, she'd come around. That's the lie I lived in. For a while, it was enough. The routine, the hope, the delusion. Until the night, everything cracked, and not in a cute, coming-of-age way. But that's a story for the next part. And trust me, it hurts. You'd think after hearing, maybe you just like me, I would have taken the hint, crawled back into my room, and emotionally face-planted into a bucket of ice cream like a normal teen. But no, I did what every overly earnest, emotionally unaware high school boy does. I took it as a goddamn challenge. Because maybe isn't a no. It's not a rejection. It's a cliffhanger. And cliffhangers mean there's a next episode, right? So I kept climbing. The night after the maybe, I sent her this long, embarrassingly passionate message about how love wasn't some switch you flip. It was a feeling you grow. Like a tree made of trust and awkward late-night messages. I used actual metaphors, which is hilarious now because I barely passed literature. She left me on scene for an hour. Then just replied, "You're sweet." No follow-up. No haha. No lol, just, "You're sweet." And I smiled like an idiot. Because back then, "you're sweet" felt like progress. We kept messaging. Not as often, not as flirty, but I was still in the game. I started adapting. I toned it down. Became less intense, more casual. Sent her funny memes, talked about dumb teachers, asked about her dog. I went from emotionally invested future husband mode to chill friend guy. Like I was doing some kind of strategic social maneuvering. It wasn't strategic. It was desperate. She and her best friend still call me out sometimes. Evening walks, random chats near the school gates, a few surprise messages like, "You up?" Which, back then, sent my heart into cardiac overdrive. Today I'd call that emotional bait. But 17-year-old me? He thought that was destiny texting. I started to live for those moments. I was addicted to any interaction. The tiniest attention crumb became a 5-course meal in my head. If she touched my arm for 2 seconds, I replayed it for a week. If she complimented my shirt, I wore it twice a week until it smelled like desperation. But the vibe started to shift. She became more distant, more vague. Our messages got shorter, drier. You know those texts where someone just replies haha to something you thought was hilarious? That's where we were. It felt like texting a brick wall, but I convinced myself she was just tired. She started posting more on social media too. More photos, more group shots. And in one of them, there was this kid. Younger looking. Short. Weird haircut. Always in the background, but always there. At first, I didn't pay attention. I figured he was someone's cousin or a club member. Then came the night. The night she and her best friend messaged me again. It was around 9 p.m. "Come walk with us," they said. I didn't even think twice. I threw on a hoodie, sprayed half a can of deodorant, like that was going to change my life, and left the house. I met them near the park, like usual. Except this time, there was someone else already there. The kid from the photos. He was leaning against the bench, laughing at something Julia said. She stood next to him. Too close. Then, and I swear this part is burned into my corneas, she hugged him. Not a casual hug. A two-arm, smiling, soft kind of hug. The kind I never got. I froze. My brain couldn't process it. This was Julia. The girl who wasn't ready for a relationship. Who said maybe. Who still messaged me "you up" like I meant something. And here she was, hugging some 14-year-old with a mushroom cut and scuffed sneakers. The worst part? She didn't even look surprised to see me. She looked casual, like this wasn't a big deal. I stood there like a jackass, unsure whether to approach or just collapse into the nearest bush. Her best friend giggled. The guy barely acknowledged me. She waved, like we were acquaintances, not someone who had poured his dumb teenage soul into her inbox for the last 2 months. And that was it. No explanation. No, hey, this isn't what it looks like. Just a hug, a wave, and a mental nuke straight to my already fragile self-esteem. I walked home numb. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't message her. Didn't even cry. Just played "I Hate Everything About You" by 3 Days Grace on loop until my mom yelled at me to turn it down. The next morning at school, I saw her in the hallway. She smiled like nothing had happened. My brain short-circuited. I gave a half nod and looked away. I didn't want to be that pathetic guy everyone whispers about, but I knew I already was. Word got around fast. A few of the guys in my class started snickering when I walked past. Someone made a joke about me being a practice boyfriend. One of the gym bros gave me a pity slap on the back. And suddenly, all the sit-ups, all the late-night talks, all the carefully crafted messages, they felt like garbage. I wasn't heartbroken. I was humiliated. And there's a difference. Heartbreak means something real got broken. This was me realizing I'd built a palace out of cardboard and called it love. I stopped messaging her. Stopped talking. Stopped reacting. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. That realization hit harder than anything else. And it didn't go away quickly. But I'll get to that. So here's the thing nobody tells you about heartbreak. It's not always loud. Sometimes it doesn't come with screaming or shattered phones or sobbing into your pillow. Sometimes it's just a quiet, nauseating click, like a light going off in your brain. One moment, you're building castles in the sky. Next, You realize someone else has already moved in and rearranged the furniture. After that night in the park, the hug hurt around my soul. I didn't rage or explode. I didn't block her or send some dramatic, "you used me" text. No, I just shut down. Completely. Cold turkey. She messaged me the next day. Just a casual hey. Like she hadn't just emotionally shanked me in a public park. I left it on scene. She followed up with a smiley. I deleted the thread. Not out of maturity, but out of pure survival instinct. Every little message felt like pouring salt in my brain. I couldn't do it anymore. But of course, I still had to see her. Every single day. School doesn't give a damn about your emotional breakdowns. I had math with her. History, too. There she was, sitting 2 rows away, giggling with her friend, occasionally glancing my way with a smile that said, "We're cool, right?" We were not cool. And then the whispers started. Some kid, let's call him Marvin, the unofficial school troll, walked by me and said, "So I guess she's into younger guys, huh?" Then laughed like he'd invented sarcasm. Another one. "Bro, she played you harder than my Xbox." Thanks, Greg. Real poetic. Some girls were nicer. They didn't laugh, just gave me these wide-eyed looks like I was some wounded puppy. Honestly, that was worse. I became the guy who got friend-zoned by Julia. Not even friend-zoned. Hope-zoned. Strung along. I was that guy. And trust me, high school is a gladiator arena for public shame. The second your social armor cracks, everyone starts throwing verbal spears. I stopped going out during lunch. I stopped using Messenger altogether. I worked out harder than ever, pushing myself until my arms shook and my lungs burned. It wasn't about fitness anymore. It was about punishment, about distraction, about shutting everything else out. Music helped. And by helped, I mean I blasted 3 Days Grace, Linkin Park, and every other early 2000s rock band like I was auditioning for the saddest, edgy teen playlist on earth. I Hate Everything About You became my personal anthem. I listened to it so much that my neighbor actually asked my mom if I was going through something. I was, but I didn't talk about it. I just smiled when people asked. Yeah, I'm good. Just tired. Classic male emotional repression 101. The worst part? I still missed her. Not the real her, but the version I made up in my head. The girl who liked long walks, laughed at my jokes, told me secrets over text. That version lived in my brain rent-free, long after the real Julia stopped giving a damn. My grades dropped a bit. I pretended I didn't care. My friends started noticing I wasn't around as much. I pretended I had other things going on. I didn't. I was just avoiding every place she might be. One day, I saw her in the hallway with Mushroom Cut Boy. Yes, that 14-year-old. They weren't hugging this time. Just walking close. Talking. But I saw it, the way she looked at him. Smiling. The kind of smile she used to give me when we shared dumb inside jokes over Messenger. And that's when the shame really set in. Because it wasn't just that she liked someone else. It was that she never really liked me. Not in the way I hoped. I wasn't the maybe. I was the placeholder. The entertainment. The guy who filled the silence between her real crushes. And man, that messed me up more than I admitted. I didn't cry. Couldn't really. Just felt hollow. Like I'd emptied out all my feelings, and there was nothing left but noise and Jim's sweat and anxiety. This lasted until the end of the school year. I functioned. I passed classes. I smiled in photos. But inside, I was on autopilot. Graduation came and went. I got accepted to a university 300 kilometers away. I packed my bags and left like I was fleeing a crime scene. And honestly, it felt like parole. Like I'd served my sentence in the high school hellscape of shame and confusion, and now I was free to start over. But starting over didn't mean healing. Because that kind of damage doesn't just disappear when you switch cities. You take it with you, and it shows up in places you don't expect. Like your first college party, your first almost kiss, your first real chance at moving on. And suddenly, you're frozen again. Like you're 17, watching her hug someone else, wondering what's wrong with you that you couldn't be enough. That's the next part. The post-high school damage. And trust me, it doesn't care about distance, or time, or new beginnings. It follows you, quietly, until you're ready to face it. I wish I could say everything magically fixed itself the moment I got to university. Like I stepped off the bus, took a deep breath of freedom, and suddenly became a confident, emotionally stable adult who laughed about the past. Yeah, no. What actually happened was that I spent my first few months avoiding eye contact with any girl who looked remotely like Julia. Which, unfortunately, was a lot of them. Apparently, pretty, brown-eyed, soft-voiced is a common template for female students under 25. I was practically walking through a minefield of emotional flashbacks. At first, I told myself it was just nerves. A little social rust, nothing serious. But then I met Anna. She was funny, loud, the complete opposite of Julia. She called me Silent Joe because I barely spoke during group projects. I laughed. She laughed. We shared snacks during late-night study sessions, and walked back to the dorms under those flickering campus lights. And one night, I felt it, that old flutter, the one that used to mean hope. So I did what I thought was brave. I asked her to grab coffee. She smiled, said yes, and then I bailed. Didn't show up. No message. No excuse. Just full-on ghost mode. Why? Because 5 minutes before leaving, I looked in the mirror and all I could see was him. The awkward, hoodie-wearing loser who thought love meant sit-ups and seen messages. The guy who got strung along and smiled through it. The dumbass who mistook a pity text for affection. I panicked. Not in a dramatic, movie-style meltdown way. Just this quiet, suffocating fear that whispered, she's going to see you the same way Julia did. And you'll end up hating yourself all over again. So I stayed in. Stared at the ceiling. Let my phone buzz until the battery died. That set the pattern. Over the next year, I met other girls. Smart ones. Cool ones. A few even liked me first. And every time I'd get close, really close, I'd find a reason to back off. Too busy. Too tired. Not ready. The truth was, I didn't think I deserved them. Not really. Because somewhere in my brain, this little voice kept saying, if Julia didn't want you when you gave her everything, why the hell would anyone else? And yeah, I knew it wasn't rational. I'd read enough self-help threads to know trauma leaves footprints. But knowing something doesn't mean escaping it. That stuff sticks. Especially when it's tied to your first taste of love, or what you thought was love. So I coped the only way I knew how. Structure. Gym. Books. Study. Repeat. I built routines like they were walls. Safe, predictable, emotionless walls. I stopped listening to music with lyrics. Switched to instrumentals. Anything to avoid catching some sad song lyric that would drag me back to that godforsaken park. And it worked, sort of. I looked better. Felt more in control. People started calling me calm, grounded, and focused. But none of them saw the crack underneath. The moment a pretty girl smiled too warmly or a message went unanswered too long, and suddenly I was 17 again, drowning in doubt and spiraling in silence. I started reading. A lot. Psychology, confidence building, that how to stop being a self-sabotaging dumbass corner of the internet. I learned about attachment styles, emotional trauma, and all that fun stuff that sounds like therapist bait but hits way too close to home. One night, and this part still makes me cringe, I actually Googled how to stop being scared of girls. Yeah, that was rock bottom. But rock bottom has a weird upside. It gives you a place to start climbing from. That was when I decided to stop pretending it didn't matter. To stop telling myself it was just a high school thing. Because it wasn't. Julia might have been a dumb teenage crush, but the damage? That was real. And the only way I was going to stop dragging her ghost into every potential relationship was by facing it. So I wrote this story. Not for her. Not even for anyone else. For me. To get it all out. The anger, the shame, the false hope, the cringy messenger messages, the freaking hug that broke my brain. All of it. I put it down like pulling a thorn out of my chest, slowly, painfully, but completely. And something shifted. Not all at once. Not some overnight transformation. But for the first time, I didn't flinch when I saw a girl smile at me in class. I didn't second-guess a compliment. I didn't delete a message draft just because it felt too much. I'm still a work in progress. Still learning. Still slipping sometimes. But I'm not running anymore. Because maybe the truth is this. Julia didn't break me. I did. By holding on to the version of her I made up. By letting one confusing teenager define 5 years of my life. By giving rejection a throne and crowning it as truth. And I'm done with that. The story ends here. But the rest of me? It's just getting started. So here's to letting go of ghosts. And to the next girl who texts me first, I'll actually text back.